My fourth point is engaging in movement building. As I mentioned earlier, last year IWDA was the presenting partner for an ambitious initiative called Asia Pacific Breakthrough, the Women, Faith and Development Summit to End Global Poverty. As the name indicates, the focus of the initiative was improving the lives of women and girls in the Asia Pacific region and in Indigenous and refugee communities in Australia. The summit provided an opportunity to focus attention on Millennium Development Goal 3, promoting gender equality, and Millennium Development Goal 5, improve maternal health. And it was deliberately held on the eve of the Parliament of the World's Religions in order to influence the attitudes and policies of the several thousand religious and faith-based leaders from around the world. Our call for new funding commitments for programs to benefit women and girls attracted almost $1.2 billion, increasing the overall resourcing of programs to address the particular needs of women. And of course, we'd also hoped to influence the many billions of dollars annually committed in development aid to ensure that it is designed and delivered in a way that is gender inclusive. And I hasten to add, just in case you think that IWDA has morphed into a large NGO over these last few months, that these funding commitments weren't to IWDA itself. They were commitments made by other agencies, such as World Vision, Oxfam, AusAid, the United Nations Population Fund, Room to Read, the Nike Foundation and the Victorian Government, to name a few. We presented Asia Pacific Breakthrough to the United Nations this month as a replicable model for other countries wanting to mobilise greater financial commitments to projects designed to benefit women and girls in some of the world's poorest countries and to influence political will. The momentum here was for more than the summit itself. It was for building a movement that sharpens the focus and resource alignment across sectors in order to achieve new action and outcomes for women and girls, to reduce poverty and increase opportunity. With this same commitment to movement building and engaging new players, IWDA invited Christine Grum, Executive Director of the San Francisco-based International Women's Funding Network and co-founder of Women Moving Millions, to come to Australia in February this year. Chris's visit was coordinated by the Australian Women Donors Network, and she spoke to audiences about how women and men have been encouraged to make living bequests by investing in women's funds and seeing their money work to lift women and girls out of poverty in their lifetime. Amnesty International was started by a living bequest, a reminder of how an initial commitment from one person can spark global change. So this movement building and gathering momentum for social change through a glass-half-full invitation to join the effort is what's needed to improve the lives of women and girls worldwide. Business as usual isn't an option if we're to see real change by 2015, the target date for the Millennium Development Goals. There's widespread acknowledgement that investing in and empowering women is amongst the most important thing we can do as a global community. Such recognition is important, indeed a precondition for greater focus, but it isn't enough. Policy making and resourcing needs to follow. While there's progress towards gender equality, it remains too slow, in large part for want of political will as well as dollars. The central importance of investing in women needs to drive what we do, the processes we use, and where the money goes. My fifth point, being informed and engaged citizens. The situation for the poorest women is affected by the policies and resource allocation of national and local governments and donor agencies, as well as by the civil society and the private sector. We need to be across what is happening and also what can make a positive difference. We need to go and hear speakers who will deepen our knowledge and challenge our perceptions, and who will provide their own perspective and roadmap for what might help us change the world. I don't know how many of you have read 3 Cups of Tea and the sequel, Stones into Schools, by Greg Mortensen, founder of the Central Asian Institute. They're both worth reading, and they provide plenty of room for applause as well as reflection. Some of the requests to those building the schools for children were from women in remote communities in Pakistan and Afghanistan who asked for their own learning spaces. Perhaps not surprisingly, it was the author's wife who urged him and his band of 12 men, the Dirty Dozen, as he refers to them in the book, to invest in such a program for women. It was a young girl he consulted who told him why children in Pakistan were refusing to go to the tent schools created after the Pakistan earthquake. They didn't have desks in them, and desks were a symbol of stability and safety for the children. And it was the author's daughter who suggested that they add playgrounds to each school to give children a place to play, as well as the formal learning. Hearing from women and girls about what was needed to allow them to gain an education made it possible for the author and his supporters to deal directly with the opposition and the obstacles. And again, it affirms the vital importance of directly involving, consulting women and girls if their needs are to be met. And it also affirms the importance of complementary programs to increase women's decision-making roles at the village level as much as at the boardroom table. These books on educating girls that are becoming bestsellers, backed by an active and engaged citizen constituency, have the potential to make an impact at the policy level. So too do online books and websites such as The Girl Effect. This website was created with support from the Nike Foundation to demonstrate the positive effects of investing more in girls' education and well-being. And when you consider the ripple effect of paying attention to girls, as articulated on this website, you'd hope that, urged by strong citizen action, government priorities and policies would recognise the need for and benefits in gender-sensitive policies and programs. One of the noticeable trends in books such as Half the Sky is that there are few facts shared about women in Pacific countries, and one probable reason for this is the lack of research available to support the stories told. Those international development agencies working in the Pacific have a clear sense of the challenges faced by women and girls. We know that the level of political representation by women is less than 1% in parliaments in the Pacific, and that the rate of maternal mortality in the Solomon Islands is increasing, not even stabilising. We know that the rate and level of sexually transmitted infections in Papua New Guinea is higher than in any country in Africa, and that it's highest for women and girls. And yet there is little sex-disaggregated data available, and what we do have is quite old. At IWDA, we're advocating a Pacific hub for research on women so that we're able to measure the impact of programs undertaken by governments and international NGOs. Tracking the achievements of investments is critical to knowing what works and why. IWDA is also a funding partner in a 3-year international research collaboration supported by the Australian National University to develop better indicators of gendered poverty and gender equality. While there's widespread recognition that poverty is multidimensional, existing measures of poverty focus largely on income and on dimensions of poverty that anyone can experience, rather than those that uniquely affect women or men. The research is working towards alternative measures that better reflect the situation of poor women, with the aim of providing a sounder base for poverty and gender-related programs. In some quarters, including amongst IWDA's program partners, the activism and advocacy is cause for optimism and hope. We've staged a successful breakthrough summit. We're in discussion with researchers re Pacific Research Hub, and we're managing to engage more women from Pacific countries in key decision-making forums on issues that affect their lives. And yet for many women, there's still so little opportunity to break out of a cycle of domestic violence, illiteracy, desperately poor health, poverty and social isolation, compared to opportunities and privileges often afforded to men. This is the reality and the challenge that we face. The sky is the limit for many men and for far few women. Those of us who personally do have the opportunities also have the opportunity to change the equation for others. Imagine to look up and see an abundance of women from all countries and all creeds in their element, realising their potential, loved, nurtured and encouraged, taking up space in parliaments, in boardrooms, in the home, at play, taking to the skies as leaders, pilots, explorers, standing their ground as stewards of the land and protectors of life, to see the image of one woman reflected many, many times over, the world over, embracing the world confidently with the calm, clear gaze of someone who knows her own worth. I hope I see it in my lifetime.